And a CSA board representative is briefing the media to answer questions about alleged chaos inside Cricket South Africa. This comes after it suspended its CEO just hours after losing a national male team's main sponsor following a week of drama, including resignation of some board members. And we are going now live to that media briefing.
And over the last few days, there's been a lot of engagement as a board and meetings via teleconference. Unfortunately, we have not prepared a statement to give to you guys, so you'll depend on what I'm going to say to you. Because we had just come out of a meeting, therefore did not have time to prepare. What I have here is just notes, and if you read what I have here, you might not have context. But because I was part of that meeting, I will have that particular context and I'll share it with you. The first issue, we are going to address a number of issues. And the first issue that we wish to talk about is the suspension of the CEO. Over the last 2.5 days, I've been talking to the CEO, Thabang Murwe, and we reached a point where both of us agree that it would be prudent and also in the interest of the organization if he were to take leave from the organization. And we agreed that he would take precautionary leave. And during that time also, we were looking at a number of possibilities, because if the CEO is not in place, and then there has to be somebody who takes over the administration, to head the administration. And the board meeting that we had yesterday at 9 o'clock via teleconference, when I presented this situation to the board, it was acceptable. And also the board gave me a mandate to say I should talk to a number of people. And one of the people that I was mandated to talk to is the former ICC CEO, Dave Richardson, in order to see if he cannot come on board during this intervening period, because the CEO would be on precautionary suspension for a certain period of time while certain things are taking place. And one of those things that will be taking place would be a management review of processes internally, structures internally, decisions taken, and so on. Also looking at the decisions taken at a governance level. And at the end of that process, there will be a prudent report that will be given to the board for the board to take this matter forward. We had a discussion with Dave Richardson, and that discussion, we concluded it this morning. Because fortunately I was able to trace him. Fortunately he was in South Africa. So we were able to talk, and we concluded that agreement this morning, that discussion this morning. However, Dave Richardson made it very clear that as a South African, he would have loved to take the opportunity. But all of us know that he has just retired from the ICC after a very long period of time at the highest level of cricket administration. And he made it very clear that currently he has plans that he feels that it would be difficult for him on a full-time basis to come and assist at CSA. And he made it very clear that as a committed South African, that he is willing and able and available to help whoever will put in during this intervening period. And he is going to support that person and share his experiences for the benefit of this country. And in that regard, remember the mandate to me was to talk to a number of people. In that regard, we began discussions with Dr. Jacques Fall from Northern Cricket Union. And you know that Jacques had been an acting CEO at CSA at some point in time, and he left to take over a title, at the Northerns. And when I spoke to him, he did not even think for a moment he said, I will come in to lend my support and put my shoulder on the wheel for the benefit of cricket in this country. Therefore, as of this moment, the acting CEO of CSA is Dr. Jacques Fall. He is here with us. You may have an opportunity to talk to him as and when you wish to do so. Then, what will then be the role of Dave Richardson in this period? His role would be to offer support and also to be available when required by the acting CEO, and he would put his services at the disposal of CSA. So that to us ticks the box where now we are having stability at the level of management, because remember we suspended the CEO yesterday, and up to this moment we did not have a CEO. And in leadership you should not allow a vacuum to occur. The other issue then, which is also very interesting and topical in our country at the moment, is the appointment of the Director of Cricket. You'll be aware that there was a process that was put in place, and that process gave a particular outcome. And you'll be aware that one of the candidates who would have been considered as a preferred candidate made certain comments in the media about his non-availability. And I had to confirm with the CEO and also with the chairperson of RAMCO as to whether this candidate was indeed the preferred candidate. And when they confirmed that to me in the affirmative, then I began to talk to this candidate. And as such, we progressed the discussions up to a point where we had an in-principle agreement. And that in-principle agreement was followed by discussing contract issues, details, which would be the basis of us agreeing and signing an engagement contract with him. We have also spoken to him this morning, and I've contacted him to say, in as much as we had not gone through the process of actually agreeing on the contract, but that the time is of the essence. We need things to move and move as fast as we can. Therefore, I'm happy to announce that we have engaged Graham Smith. That is now in the public domain, and I'm confirming that we have engaged him, and he has agreed that by next week, Wednesday, all the negotiations around the contract terms that needs to take place would have been concluded, and we'll have to enter into an agreement, so that we still have these 3 days left for the process of engagement on the specifications, on the specific issues around the contract. And we have, both of us, him and CSA, agreed that it's important that we conclude this by Tuesday, so that on Wednesday we are able to announce to the public a certain point of how do we go forward on this matter, because it is important. And if you have your Director of Cricket in place, then your selection process is going to kick in, and then your team preparation is going to kick in. Because in the manner in which we have structured this role, we do not want a situation where this person is not having input and a contribution in the manner in which you build your selection panel. The other issue that we want to be very clear about as a board and the members' council is for us to affirm our support to the players, and we'll be engaging with the players to ensure that CSA builds an inclusive culture for all its stakeholders, in particular the players and the members of staff. We have just briefed the senior management of staff, and we are going to engage the players because the players are very important to us. It's a very, very important stakeholder. And actually, if the players were not there, there would not be CSA. So it is important for us to normalize relations at that level and talk to the players so that we have a common approach and a common understanding and a common way of doing things going forward. So that matter is going to be attended to. This is part of an engagement which CSA will be having with SACA as a matter of urgency. I think I'll come back to that point. It is important that these two organizations, CSA and SACA, get into a point where all the issues that seem to be vexatious between us and them are handled and therefore are dealt with in a manner that is very, very professional and manner that is very conclusive. One of the issues that have created this sense of tension, if I may use that word, between the board and SACA, is a decision that the Members' Council had taken to restructure domestic cricket in order to infuse the two levels of first-class cricket. And there has been an issue that SACA has put on the table that we have not properly and as expected consulted with them in terms of the recognition agreement as well as MOU 18. The Members' Council last night gave the board a clear mandate to say the board needs to fix this relationship with SACA and that the board must do everything possible to ensure that all of these issues are addressed so that there is harmony in the relationship, there's harmony in the cricket space in this country. Therefore, the board is committed to implement this directive given by the Members' Council and regarding the rebuilding of the relationship with SACA. As a matter of process in that regard, the board will be putting in place a negotiating panel, which would be the arm that is going to do the actual talking and the actual negotiations with SACA. And we are going to inform SACA in due course of this decision so that we are able to move together and get into robust discussion on the basis of honesty, on the basis of having a common view in terms of what is the interest that the country expects us to protect relating to cricket. The other issue is the events over the last few days that emanated from the revocation of the accreditation for certain journalists. And as a board, we have noted the apology that has been coming from the CEO to stakeholders, and in particular the players, the media, the sponsors, the fans. And as a board, we endorse that apology. And as a board, we wish to extend that apology to everybody, the players, volunteers, members of staff of CSA, and anybody who has interest in cricket, who wants to see cricket developing and who wants to see cricket becoming a sport of choice in this country of ours. The other issue that we considered, you'll recall that we had put Western Province Cricket Association under administration for a number of reasons. And that process or that decision was taken on arbitration by the board of the Western Province Cricket Association, and the award was granted to Western Province Cricket Association. And when the arbitrator awarded that decision to the Western Province Cricket Association, he noted very important matters that we have to consider as CSA. One, in terms of our MOI, the step-in rights are contained in Article 12.3 and Article 12.4 of our MOI. And that is what guides you when you're stepping in a particular affiliate. And in terms of substantive issues, the arbitrator has not found fault in as far as CSA is concerned on those issues. But what the administrator has done, because this is a contractual relationship, the administrator has applied a very strict interpretation of the relevant clauses. Because remember, it's about protection of rights. So he applied a very, very strict interpretation. And when he looked at the relevant clauses and looked at the actions of CSA, he could not find expressly stated in the relevant clauses that which authorizes CSA to act and conduct itself in the manner in which it has. As a result, he found in favor of the Western Province Trade Association, and we met as a board and we said we're not going to take this matter on review. We were not intervening in that space in a manner that is vindictive, but we were trying to find a solution to a problem that could emanate and also that could put the project that is ongoing there in jeopardy. We therefore agreed that we will respect the award and the decision of the arbitrator, and we're going to start a process to firm up and close the gaps within our own MOI, so that when we in future step in an affiliate, it is a fair process that is grounded on proper provisions of the MOI. The other issue is the position and tenure of the board. At the meeting last night, we had a very, very robust discussion. If I can give you a sense of that meeting, the meeting started at 7. The meeting ended at 1:15 in the morning. It was a very robust meeting, very honest and very honest in terms of addressing the issues, not skirting the issues. But at the end of the day, or at the end of the night, of the morning, the Members' Council supported and endorsed the board to continue in its role and move forward in its efforts to turn the organization around, with a very clear message that the Members' Council expect the board to exercise authority and its power in the interest of cricket. And the Members' Council therefore endorsed that the board should continue and to guide us through this period and to turn things around in the organization and take the necessary decision that needed to be taken. Then the other issue is the resignation of independent directors. You would have, in fact, I think you were the first to know, probably, that some directors had resigned. Professor Shirley Zinn, Mohammed Iqbal Khan, former chairman of Finance Committee, as well as Don Mukhobo, the former chairperson of Ramco, citing various reasons. And I have spoken to all of them. And unfortunately, some of the resignations, before the board could consider them, were out there in the media. But as a board, we want to emphasize the point that board members have a responsibility to the organization, have a responsibility to the company in terms of keeping confidential information of the company. It's a duty that attaches to each and every member of the board. And the board has decided to thank them for their services. And as I have communicated as such to them. And the board will engage in a process through our nomination processes to fill in those vacancies. The last matter that I want to address you on is the suspension of certain staff members at head office. When I think it would have been when after the company secretary was appointed, Walsh Kwaza, I met him and the CEO. And one of the things that I said to them is that let's clean up our organization. And it is an instruction that I've given before. Let's clean up our organization so that what we see, what the public sees, is what the public want to see. And these are very difficult issues to deal with. We cannot go into details because you're talking about the employment of individuals in the company. And as a responsible employer, we cannot therefore begin to go into details as to what are the specific issues and so on. But what is important is that there are disciplinary processes which have been instituted against these staff members. To ensure that the disciplinary process is fair, CSA has appointed independent chairpersons for the DC hearing as well as an external prosecutor. What we've done, we've taken whatever we have in terms of evidence, put before an independent prosecutor for that person to prosecute this case so that there's total independence in dealing with these matters. I think those were the issues that we wish to communicate to you. I will give over to my colleagues next to me if they want to add here and there. Other than that, we can have an engagement in terms of questions, but we don't have a lot of time. Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Members of the media, due to time, I will allow the members of the media to engage with the panel. We've agreed on 15 minutes for Q&A session so that we can have an opportunity for one-on-one with the President and also with the new acting CEO of Cricket South Africa. So I'll hand over to the members of the media to ask questions to the panel by raise of hand. I'll give the first one to you, Scott.
Peter Sunday from Newsroom Africa. Mr. President, just for clarity's sake, how long is the suspension of Thabang Moore?
We are looking at a period that may not exceed 6 months. It may be earlier, because as he is on suspension, there's also going to be a process that is going to be taking place to the review process in terms of the critical aspects of the business as well as the manner in which management issues have been handled. And that report, therefore, is going to determine the time where you can say, okay, the suspension ends and what happens next. But we would want that to be as soon as possible, and it's going to be conducted by an independent and an outside authority to deal with that. It's not going to be done by us. So we will have to engage wherever we engage on that score.
Hi, Niran Tulsi from the Mail and Guardian. Mr. Nenzani, first question for you. Thank you for taking the South African public into your confidence in that spirit. I was just wondering, while I understand that there may be HR issues around the 7 suspended officials, can you perhaps give the South African public an idea as to what some of the broad themes or the broad allegations may be? Is it money? Does it have to do with financial irregularities? Does it have to do with any specific behavior, etc.? And my second question for Mr. Skuman. Sir, you're the only independent director here. And I suppose the independent director's job is to provide independent-mindedness and expertise when it comes to decisions being made. Over the past 2 years, generally, what have you been doing? And more specifically, how did you all respond, for example, to the CEO coming to you with a T20 competition which was not going to be monetized, which didn't have broadcast rights, which didn't have sponsors? How did you all respond as independent directors?
I think let me put it very clear from the onset. The suspension of these 3 senior executives in the organization has nothing to do with misappropriation of funds. It has to do with certain decisions that should have been taken, which were not taken, leading to a situation where the payment that was due to SACA in terms of Zanzi Super League 2018, that should have been paid out in terms of image rights. I mean, it's a common issue.
So that's the public domain. I'm talking about the 3 other individuals who were suspended this week and the CEO.
I think I explained with the CEO. But also at the level where you have other members of staff suspended, there is a process, internal process, that is taking place in terms of firming up on internal controls and looking at spaces like your procurement area as well as your credit card usage in the organization. And as you go through, you gather enough evidence, and in order for you to be able to proceed, you may have to suspend a particular individual so that that person is not in a position to interfere with witnesses or processes internally. That is an internal process that will be completed, and that process takes place under the auspices of the Audit and Risk Committee. At this stage, we cannot have any conclusive statement to say this is what this person has done. It has to come out after a proper investigation.
And do you have a timeline, sir?
It's difficult to put a timeline in such investigations because you might not know how deep it is, or it may take a very few weeks to sort out, or it may take some kind of time. But you will need to give space to that investigation so that it's concluded exhaustively.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, I think the answer that I'm going to give you is not the one that you were looking for. And that I was nominated and appointed by the Members' Council at the AGM on the 7th of September. So what I've been doing since then, in my capacity as Chairman of the Audit and Risk Committee and a member of the Social and Ethics Committee, I've made it my business to understand what is going on. And I also participated in the discussions and have provided advice and input as a director in terms of my experience and in terms of my own thoughts that I do independently.
In fact, I can come in here because I think the question from the onset was probably unfair for Marius.
Sure.
Yeah, but maybe you were not aware of that fact. So I'm not blaming you for asking that question. I think we need to correct the perception that the Mzansi Super League was a Thaba Murwe product. We need to correct that. That was a product and a decision of CSA, taken by all the structures of CSA. You know that management is there to implement decisions taken by the board and the relevant structures. It was not his personal fiefdom that he had developed, and he was exercising a mandate given to him. You'll recall that in 2017, we pulled the plug on the then T20 Global League, primarily because it was not affordable. Hence, we said, okay, let's look at an alternative. And we knew when we approved all the model relating to the Mzansi Super League, we knew that it's not going to make money as soon as we wish it to. And I think it's a fair or unfair kind of an assessment. If you look at the IPL in India, it began to make money, I think, on the 10th year. And you expect, therefore, Mzansi League to make money in its second or in its first year. But the point is, it's not the CEO's baby, it is an organization, but as the leader of the executive management, he had to lead at that level.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And then Amani, Chris, in that order.
Anything about whatever he says, what does it say about Enoch Mkwe? Is it going to be an advertised position? Is it going to continue on the interim?
Unfortunately, I was talking to him alone, not to him with his people. But I understand the question, the import of your question. Remember, as a board, when we introduced this position of the director of cricket, which, by the way, is not a new position, it's not a new concept because of the World Cup performance. This comes out of the review, a national team review panel that was in place way back in 2015. And we said as a board, we need to give that person total control of the cricket and playing affairs space. And therefore, when the director of coaching comes in, let me explain this way. That is why you do not have currently, you have an interim director of the team. You do not have a selection panel, because when that person comes in, the director of cricket, he must have a handle on the appointment of those key functionalities.
Mr. President.
To express, a number of resolution, or a resolution with a number of steps apparently to be taken, and that was to disband the whole board. I don't recall you giving a bit of a view on that from the board's perspective, and also maybe reassurance that this is the direction CSA is taking. And just secondly, with the sponsors as well, they've come out aggressively in social media, and just a way forward with that as well, sir, please.
The resolution of the Central Gauteng Cricket Board has not come before the Members' Council. It was not part of the agenda, because that is where it should have been discussed. It was not submitted, therefore it was not discussed. But I think that board was within its right to make such a resolution when they have their ordinary meetings in the pursuit of the interests of the game in this country. But that matter was did not serve before the Members' Council, therefore it was not addressed. So there's no resolution or any opinion on it. And then the issue of sponsors. Remember, when I started, I said we want to come up and talk to the public, including our commercial partners, because they're very important in this game. And Standard Bank, I've spoken to them, they've spoken to me, and even before the meeting where they took that decision, we had a conversation in the morning, and even the week before that, we had a conversation with their CMO. They've taken a decision, and we may not like the decision they've taken, but you need to understand the circumstances. As a corporate body, they had to take such a decision when they consider the issues around cricket in this country. But the renewal process will be in 2020 April, and I'm sure by then you would have had a different situation, and continue to engage with all our sponsors because they're important to us. Therefore, we continue to engage with them, and we have a period where we're just, it's like a banana peel, if I may put it that way. But we have to recover and do the work that we need to do, the work that we have been put in these positions to do.
Chris, Mr. President, Christa Buchner from Network 24. Just the position of the media manager, who apparently was quite instrumental in having the accreditations withdrawn. What's his position? And then also, what would you say to cricket fans around the country, with England basically arriving this week, I would imagine, and their first match starting in a week and a half? Should there be concern from them that, a national squad and a coach selection panel have not actually officially been announced, or at this stage?
I think let me start with the last one, because it's very important. I think the public should not be concerned. I understand the concern that is there, and the agitation that is there, and consternation, but I think the public should not be concerned. These matters are going to be attended to. Even if you were to say everything were to be normal, if I may use that word, and you would have a coach, would have everybody in place, still the team would not be in a post, would not be in camp now, because you still have the Mzansi Super League continuing, and after that you still have a round of the 4-day games to be played. Immediately we announced that we are appointing the director of cricket, immediately everything kicks in. And fortunately, there will be support from the CEO. Everything will kick in, and we will be ready to face England and we'll give them a tough time.
Can I just ask, will the national players, the Pakistan season, and the Kafisa Rabadas, all the national players, will they be sort of be almost forced or be asked to play in that last round of the domestic matches before the first test starts?
It will depend on the director of cricket as well as the team director, what decision they take, and they will advise. Second aspect of the question, because I started with the last one.
The first one was on the media manager. What's his position at the moment?
Remember, as a board, we deal with the CEO. We don't overreach beyond the CEO. And I was here on Tuesday, and I was at the office, and I met Tabang and his management team. And when I spoke to him, and I asked, "What are you doing?" And the sense was that he is taking responsibility for what had happened and is going to deal with the matter internally. So to me, that's where I should stop. I cannot go and overreach at the level of the manager, because he reports to the CEO. Ours is to hold the CEO accountable.
Can you take the next question?
Right here at the back. Can you just give us clarity, because there's a difference between renewal and termination of contract between you guys and Standard Bank. What has transpired? Was Standard Bank due? Was the contract due to expire next year? So Standard Bank decided not to renew, or they've decided to terminate.
It puts everything in context. The contract with Standard Bank expires next year in April. They have taken a decision that when that contract expires, they will not renew. Currently, the engagement and the contractual obligations on the part of Standard Bank, on the part of CSA, still continue until that period in time.
Talagele from Eyewitness News. President, can we just get clarity in terms of, we're hearing that you guys had that marathon board meeting yesterday where all these decisions were made. For the local cricket fan, they're sitting there going, but all these months, since we knew that we restructured the management side, why did it take so long to actually get to this point where we're making decisions, whether it's about the director of cricket or sitting down and discussing with SACA a way forward?
There's an ideal world and a real world. And in an ideal world, everything falls in line, as expected, as planned. But in a real world, you need to deal with real and objective situations. And you need to be able to respond to the challenges that are taking place at a particular time. And the matter of taking decisions and meeting as a board, and then to be able to ensure that all of these decisions are taken. Sometimes you're dealing with moving targets. I'll give you an example. When the panel interviewed the candidates for the director of cricket position, they had a preferred candidate. And we were ready to meet so that we can give a proper mandate to that particular candidate. But something else happens. Therefore, you have to reset your entire process and engage in a different strategic debate and discussions with this particular person. Because if you don't do that, all other things that are contingent to the appointment of the director of cricket are not going to be able to take place. And therefore, we had to get to a point where you are able to meet. You'll recall that we had planned a press conference on Tuesday. But we felt that we do not want to call a press conference when we have not sort of put together a very concrete framework of how we're moving forward. Because you would have you would have asked me questions which I could not be in a position to answer those questions, and all of my colleagues here. Hence, we said, okay, let the board meeting take place. Let the members' council, which met last night, take place. so that you have all of these decisions, having gone through the necessary governance structure for CSA, and then you are able to say, this is what we're communicating as the way forward.
Stuart? Stuart is from the Star. How are you and the board taking responsibility for what is a crisis in South African cricket at the moment and what is taking place, especially in the last week? The board is very much complicit in allowing the CEO to take on all these responsibilities. Those are his words, the first week of August. So how are you taking responsibility as a board, as a president, for what has taken place here? Why isn't, and then my second part of the question is, why haven't you as president resigned, and why isn't the board resigned?
The board, Stuart, is not complicit in terms of decision making.
But look at the CEO.
The board took decisions, and therefore those decisions had to be implemented by the CEO and his management. And in that process, the board will have to conduct business and take decisions within its purview, within its competency. And therefore management will continue to implement those decisions in terms of the mandate emanating from the board. And what has been a critical element has been these two issues that I've referred to. The non-payment of the monies that are due to SACA for the players, as well as the revocation of accreditation for certain journalists. And that is the issue that has sort of become so critical that we had to take drastic actions. Other than that, some of these matters are just a matter of processing the decisions. And what we've done, we've given the CEO responsibility, indeed. We've given the CEO responsibilities so that he can be accountable to the board. And the board holds the CEO accountable for that. And the board accounts to the Members' Council in terms of the decisions that it is taking and also how it acts out of those decisions. And the Members' Council, after a very long discussion last night, felt that the board should continue in order to ensure that the challenges that are facing this organization are dealt with.
How are you taking responsibility? Struggling to understand.
For
as a president and as a board, for this crisis that we're sitting with in South African cricket right now, I'm battling to understand how you are taking responsibility. Can you explain?
That is why we're sitting here to talk to the nation, so that we're able to say we've taken these decisions to address the matters that require to work. And we're making very clear that we are explaining the contextual factors in terms of taking decisions and or decisions that have not been taken at the time when the nation would have expected those decisions to be taken. I'm not sure if some of my colleagues would want to comment.
The next question.
Charlene from EMCA. You said that on Tuesday you had asked Thabang what is he doing. So just on that, how did some of the decisions that took place and that resulted in all of this that's happened this week happen? Or what have been your conversations exactly around how all of this happened? Also with SACA and the tensions around there. And also just character and Graham's Smith, is there any chance that before Wednesday terms could possibly not be agreed on?
If you negotiate a contract, there's a possibility that you may agree and a possibility that you may not agree. And I think what is important is, I'm sure if you've done any kind of negotiations, you know that you'll agree that these are the key issues. If you agree on the key issues, we can then at a later stage deal with the minor issues. And the minor issues also is relative. It might be minor to me, it may not be minor to you. So that is why we're saying by Wednesday we need to make an announcement. We're giving space for what needs to happen in terms of looking at the conduct issues. In principle, we've agreed he is on board, but we need to ensure that before we can say we are signing, we're appointing him, but then we have to address the key issues so that we don't have to get into an agreement and we sign and then we don't agree on some aspects of the contract. Then also in the issue of some of the issues that relate to SACA, remember the issue that relates to SACA did not only emerge last week or this week. it is a matter that has emerged and was attended to quickly when the CEO became aware of this matter. He attended to it as a matter of urgency. I think they would have signed around 12 o'clock on that particular day, and the payment would have been effected in the late afternoon. It did not emanate during this week. But the other issue that emanated this week, I think the CEO has issued a statement in which he apologized to the country, to the media, and a statement that we have also endorsed as a board. And we would have expected him to take measures internally, as he had said to me, and therefore that matter needs also to be pursued by the incoming acting CEO.
Can I kindly take two last questions, then we'll open it up for one-on-ones, and then we'll be taken by any of my colleagues. Yes, sir. Nicole, you'll take you had your back for a while.
Thank you, PK. Hi, Mr. President. Nicole from ENCA. I've got two quick ones. Why, and this is to CSA, why has it taken the CSA so long to realize, for the lack of better words, that they need to get their house in order? The issue of non-payment to players is not a new one. This is the second season of MSL. Least us forget, prior to MSL, we had the GLT20. Least us also forget the cries from SACA that CSA does not communicate with him. I personally, having worked in cricket myself, have communication from April 2018 that still hasn't been responded to by CSA. So when CSA goes forth and says journalists are lying, it actually isn't true. CSA doesn't communicate. That is number one to CSA. And then number two, I think, KK, you did say we can speak to Jacques Fall as well. Dr. Jacques Fall from Titans Cricket is possibly the best CEO in cricket in its entirety. So now you becoming interim CEO now at CSA, what does that mean for Titans Cricket? You guys have been number one for, I think, 5 years in a row in administration. Who's going to look after Titans Cricket and Northern Cricket Union while you're gone?
Nicole, can I kindly ask the second question? Dr. Jean will take it for the one-on-ones. I'll hand over the first questions to the panel.
Thanks, PK.
I can respond. I don't have a problem to that question. There was a question relates to why does CSA take so long in terms of responding to some of the issues. For instance, you're making reference to payments that should have been done to the players, to SACA, as part of the agreement that was signed last year. And I'm sure this matter has been ventilated quite a lot in the media. And we have a CSA issue statements on this regard, and some of them have been disregarded. But the issue here is, this is a matter that had not been brought to the attention of the CEO until at a point where SACA declared a dispute. And when the CEO had knowledge of this matter, the matter was addressed within days. And also, I would be, it will be very difficult for me to respond as to when we're saying CSA does not respond to queries of media communication. Because CSA, remember, is a huge organization. It would be quite useful if you were to be specific in terms of a matter that was addressed to a particular person. But in a general sense, we would like to be responsive as quickly as we can, because we are dealing with a national asset. Cricket is not for us, for the benefit of the people of this country, the players, the fans, the commercial partners. So we want to improve on that. And one of the, unfortunately, I'm going to say that one of the issues that Jacques has to deal with is this turnaround in terms of our communication responsive to issues that are brought before us.
Can you take the last question, and we'll go to one-on-ones.
Again, Paul from One World Sports Radio. Mr. President, in your discussion with Graham, what was the breakdown in relationship between CSA and him in terms of, you mentioned that he was number one preferred candidate in the Remco selection?
This will need me to give a bit of a context to that question before I can answer it. You will recall that there were media reports that Grammy has emerged as the favorite candidate. And within that space, there was a meeting planned so that I can meet with him before an offer to employ him has been made, in order to ensure that I convey to him clearly the thinking and the mandate from the board. I've done that before when we have certain key personnel appointed. That meeting would have taken place on a certain Friday, and unfortunately the Thursday before, we have issued a message that he is no longer available, is no longer interested. And he made three very key issues that I think I needed to address. One is that he does not trust the operations at CSA. And secondly, he said that he does not believe that he would have enough space to do the work that he needed to do, and such that he could not guarantee that there will be no political intervention as well as executive management interference. Then the third one was that he did not trust the CEO. And when I engaged with him on these issues, we were able to talk through these issues, and I ended up traveling to Cape Town to meet him. And in that meeting, because it's key to have a relationship between the director of cricket as well as the CEO, because these people are going to be working together on a daily basis. And in that meeting, I brought with me the CEO and also requested one of the now resigned members of the board, Professor Sherizin, to sit in that meeting when I'm talking to councilmen. And in that meeting was a very cordial meeting. We addressed all the issues openly, and then we said, okay, let's move to a point where now we're negotiating terms.
Members of the media, let me take this opportunity to thank you for coming through to this press conference. I'll now allow members of the media to come forward and take this opportunity to also thank the board members for coming through and maybe also open it up for one of our questions. Mr. Jean-Paul, you can come and join us. Thank you.